Welcome back to The Big Picture here on 10 TV.
We have a very special guest.
Hey
Angela
guys,
Ann.
I'm so excited.
Hi. This is your first time.
My first time on The Big Picture. You guys have been killing it.
Aw,
Love
thank
it.
you.
Love it.
Well, we're talking about a really just upsetting, chilling case. Growing
Yes.
up in Columbus, like we've all heard about this.
The Brian Shaffer missing case.
Yes.
Yes.
It's 20 years to the day.
Yes, today
Wow.
marks
So-
20 years.
And you spent some time covering this case 20 years ago. And I mean, there's so many questions still 20 years later. How does somebody last seen going up the escalator of a bar disappear?
Right.
And let's start at the very beginning. Do you remember when you guys first got the call into the newsroom?
I do.
What was that like?
So I remember that when it was first reported, right? Student missing, went to a bar. I think in most cases when it's an adult who goes missing, there isn't a whole lot of urgency, so to speak. Adults are allowed to disappear if they want, as opposed to a child, right? But it wasn't until a couple days later where we started hearing this is a little unusual. Hasn't talked to any friends, was supposed to go on a trip with his fiance, and it started getting a lot of attention, especially through Central Ohio Crime Stoppers, and we work with them very closely. So at that point, when families started saying we're going to start putting up signs, and police really started getting involved, saying that this is a little suspicious at first, that was our first clue that something's not right.
Yeah.
And walk us through that night that he was never seen leaving the ugly tuna.
So
bar.
Brian Shaffer, and I think this is why this case still resonates so much today, right? It is this big mystery. How does a 27-year-old student, bright future medical student, out on a night off campus with some friends, goes to a bar, surveillance shows him going up this escalator and actually coming up and down right there. Yep. And the surveillance shows him going up and down a few times in the night, but then no surveillance ever shows him leaving at all. And what you're seeing here is a relentless coverage where, as police said, they are combing that video frame by frame. They noticed some things over the years. For example, there was the orange sweater guy. So if you notice, when you show those different video shots, there was someone in an orange sweater who went up and down the escalator 6 times in a span of like 10 minutes. So of course that became a who was the orange sweater guy, right? Because over 20 years, every single tip meant something to this case. Unfortunately, so far today, we still have no answers.
Wow.
Nothing.
And I mean, there was massive search efforts.
Huge. People on the ground, Brian's family, his father, Randy, his brother, Derek, his fiance, Alexis. And then they also brought in volunteer search teams from around the country. There was a group called Texas EquiSearch who came in with horses. They came in with boats. They were searching ponds. And at that time, we actually had another huge missing persons case, Tony Luzio Jr., who was the son of a CPD officer. So at the time, Texas EquiSearch came and said, we're going to search for both. Right? Because these are 2 cases of 2 young men who should not be missing.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, what do they think happened? Do they think he left out a back door?
So that's the big question.
What is the best theory?
So, and here's where, the story just keeps unraveling. The Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular campus bar, but there was some construction going on at the time. And so people said, well, maybe he fell into a construction area and it was unconscious. And then people started saying, what if there was foul play? What if he was hidden inside a wall? So literally police brought in cadaver dogs. They searched the walls. They searched the construction areas. They actually recreated the scene so many times, tried to leave the Ugly Tuna Saloon without being caught on camera, thinking maybe we missed him on the cameras. 60 times they recreated that. They were caught on camera every single time. They finally determined that there was a little bit of a time lapse in some of the surveillance cameras. So perhaps he slipped out, but in 5 seconds.
Right.
So the theory is, did he wear a disguise? Was there some, somebody said he was dealing with depression early on. So, and his mother had just passed away 3 weeks ago from cancer. So there were so many layers to this, which all had question marks. If this happened, could he have done this instead? But if there was foul play, could someone have gone back to the bar the next day, maybe, and removed the body?
Right.
Many questions.
And there was also a period of time that we thought maybe we had found him. They'd come in contact with someone who was homeless, correct? And they thought it could be him.
So over the years, many photos kept surfacing. People saying, I think I spotted this guy looks just like Brian Shaffer in Mexico, Tijuana. Right. And we're like, we knew he loved the beach. And if this was somebody who wanted to disappear from life, perhaps.
Go there.
And we actually received that tip. And I don't know if you guys have that photo, but it was a photo of somebody who looked disheveled, sitting on a sidewalk, a little despondent. So we took that photo to Columbus Police and we said, we are getting too many messages about this photo. Tell us more. What are you guys doing to investigate this tip? And they came back to us and said, we'll give you exclusive access to the case and tell you. So we went, they opened up the files. I couldn't take any photos, but I could just look at the files. And they took the photos to the FBI. The FBI compared what they call the homeless man, the Mexico photo, with all the images they had of Brian. With facial analysis, they determined it was not him.
Yeah.
If you believe that. Because other people out there say, well, I took it to my facial analyst who says there are some similarities.
And this, I just keep thinking about the family. 20 years,
And we
no
heard
closure.
Yeah.
Which I think is the
Heartbreaking.
hardest. And we actually heard from Brian's family through a spokesperson who basically said that they do feel that someone out there knows what happened.
Right.
And that's something that police have said all along. They know someone knows something, and even to this day, they say there are still persons of interest. They won't call them a suspect, but persons of interest. And they need that one piece of information to really just answer, is Brian alive? Or if something happened, what happened? So that Derek, his brother, the sole survivor of the family, because Randy, unfortunately, his father passed away 2 years after Brian disappeared, that they do get that closure
That
they
is
need.
so upsetting.
And I know that, we talked to his then fiance almost immediately after the disappearance.
Alexis, yes.
Alexis, and she basically said nothing seems to fit. Like nothing comes together. Like it's so strange.
Yeah. I think, do you guys have a clip of that from
Yeah,
Alexis?
let's pull it up.
Let's listen in.
Nothing seems to fit. It just seems like he's just vanished into thin air, honestly.
So yeah, it's
Tough because Alexis was so perplexed, like most of us. And this trip that she and Brian were supposed to take the very next day, supposedly they were going to get engaged. On that trip. And so a lot of, she, we've spoken to her many times over the years. I think she also needs that closure as well. But I think part of the reason this case got so much attention was really because of Brian's father, Randy.
Yeah.
He was relentless in keeping in touch with us, the media, and making sure his son's name was still out there. He organized searches and vigils. We have video of him walking the Lowhead dams right there along the Olentangy because he thought, well, what if something happened, right? There are only so many resources that police and others can do. So he said, I'm going to do my own. And that's why this case has really lived on for 20 years.
Wow.
And you've got kind of a special coming up this afternoon on this case, right?
We do, right here on 10 TV Plus. We're bringing back a former 10 TV producer who, like a lot of people, is really into some of these true crime types of stories. But this case, she was part of the behind the scenes, making sure that we amplified the message of not just Brian, but a lot of missing adults in a lot of cases that just really didn't feel or sit right. We're going to be talking about why this case, and you said you remember it growing up.
Oh, yeah. And that was a large part in why people were a little scared to go down to campus area for a little while. I feel like in Ugly Tuna, it kind of got a bad rap.
Right. And it's no longer there. I mean, the whole area is so different now. But we're also going to be talking with the retired detective who was really the first one on this case for the first decade, if you will. And he has some answers, he says, that he hopes to give to debunk some of those myths and theories that are out there. So we'll talk to him as well.
Okay. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Angela, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on
guys.
today.
Appreciate it.